And welcome to One-on-One with LM Chukwemeka on Ben Television. Today we'll be speaking with a guest which you are familiar with. He's the former governor of Kwara State. Join me to welcome His Excellency, the former governor of Kwara State, Alhaji Abdulfatah Ahmed. Sir, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Well, you did introduce me well, but for the sake of our viewers again, I could reiterate. My name is Alhaji Abdulfatah Ahmed. I was the executive governor of Kwara State from 2011 to 2019, giving me a two-term tenure period for governorship in Kwara.
Okay, from my research, you are a banker. From banking work, you joined politics. What influenced your decision?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, I found myself, in the banking industry because I chose to be a banker. I'd always admired banking, and I enjoyed my work in the banking space. My incursion into politics was largely accidental. I never really thought I could go into politics. However, when my friend, my boss, got elected as the executive governor of Kwara State, he invited me to join him as the commissioner for finance. Incidentally, even during my banking experience, I'd had interfaces with the public sector, and I always looked forward to being a player in the public sector, especially in service delivery. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me when I was invited to come in as then commissioner for finance. I gladly took the position up, and I'm happy I enjoyed what I did as the commissioner. And that was just what propelled me to look forward to delivering higher services in the public sector.
Okay, do you have the mindset of becoming a governor one day, even as a commissioner?
Certainly not. But I always look forward to being available to deliver services to the people at any level I was called upon to. So my coming in as a governor was just good enough for me as part of an avenue to deliver service to the people. So I saw that as an opportunity for me. But it wasn't something that I planned from inception, that this was what I wanted to do. But in terms of wanting to deliver service, I've always planned to want to deliver service to the people at any level I had opportunity to.
Okay, you met a state that has been built on something. Would you say that after 8 years of your service as the governor of the state, that you met the expectations you wanted to?
Yes, I did, to the extent that when I was going in as a governor, I definitely had clear areas I said I was going to impact on in terms of service delivery. And I had in mind how much resources was going to be available. Unfortunately, by the time we got to our second term, we came in with a recession in 2015, if you recall. The administration of President was ushered in with a recession, and that, of course, slowed down some of our expectations. But we quickly readjusted by improving our revenue access, and were able to deliver the goods and services as encapsulated in our campaign promises. So I'm happy with what I did.
What are those projects that you can be able to point out that if you look at it today, you say, yes, I've done well?
Yes, firstly, I had in mind to improve the healthcare service delivery. And immediately I looked at it that the administration I served as a commissioner did a lot of work on primary healthcare. So it, of course, dawned on me that there was need for us to improve on the secondary and tertiary healthcare. So immediately I looked at the general hospitals, and I saw the areas of gaps that we had in each of the 3 senatorial districts, and I moved immediately to renovate 5 of the general hospitals and make them very current. I made them world-class to be able to serve the plethora of primary healthcare services we had across the state. And of course, we supported a lot of primary healthcare services too. And in areas of education, we did quite a lot at the primary and secondary levels by improving on not only availability but also accessibility, to the extent that we improved on infrastructure, classrooms, and training of teachers, and materials to aid teaching services were also provided. And we also ensure that we incorporated what we call the hitherto informal sector of the educational system, i.e. skill acquisition. We incorporated it into the mainstream management services of the state education sector. That is, we moved the Ministry of Education then to become Ministry of Human Capital Development and Education. So that saw a situation where even hands-on training program were also incorporated into the education system, because it became clear to us that education was beyond looking for the formal certification of the usual basic primary school, secondary school, and probably senior secondary school. We thought a situation where skill acquisition were also given the same platform, because this is one of the most required areas to stimulate our economy to a desired level. And that saw us setting up an international vocational center, which we call Ivy Tech. It's one of the very best we have in the country today. We designed it in ways by which we wanted to see a synergy between that school and the C&G of London, where skill acquisition will be properly certificated and not only making them market relevant, but also seeing them exportable. Because we feel that with the plethora of youth we have in Nigeria, we can't continue to rely on outsiders to come and do basic things for us. And we saw that a lot of our youths have acquired normal education, i.e. secondary and probably tertiary, but they found themselves not applicable to the current needs of the industry. And that's why we decided to look at the Vocational Training Institute, which was going to give them a market-relevant training program. It's designed to also create them into entrepreneurs that will be possible employers of labor, and also they are also possible exporters of labor to other neighboring parts of Africa. This was done in mind, and this was done with the hope that we had in mind also the All-African, Continental Free Trade Agreement, which we felt was going to be huge in terms of potentials for us as Nigeria. I mean, with our population, we feel that when we have a well-skilled youth environment, we'll be able to get our youth to not only participate in our own economy and drive entrepreneurship, but also will be relevant in other sub-Saharan Africa. In areas of infrastructure, we looked at it from basically the needs of our people, who largely are rural. And we saw that we had to make the roads to support agriculture, because being able to move agri-produce to the market also improves on the economy of the state. So that mapped out the roads we are going to do. And we did quite a number of roads in the northern part of the country, another part of the state, and also the central part of the state and the southern part of the state, all with a view to ensuring that we created access of movement of goods and services for our people. And I'm happy to say that it also helped in linking up communities, with each other to see how things would work. Of course, water is very critical. Water everywhere. So we did a lot on water. My predecessor started a major water program for Ilorin Metropolis. Don't forget that Ilorin, being the state capital, it keeps growing regularly. People keep coming in. So infrastructure is never enough. It also requires that we keep upgrading. So as such, a huge water project was commenced by my predecessor, which I completed, to increase water supplies to increasing population of the state. And of course, it was also supported with lots of underground water, that is through boreholes and other ways to ensure that water was available. And the policy my predecessor started was also continued in terms of water distribution, to ensuring that no community moves more than 500 meters to access potable drinking water. I ensure that I sustain the policy, and we make sure that people had access to potable water, and of course water for irrigation and other services too were also provided. Energy was supported. We introduced solar energy because we felt that we noticed that the world is going green in terms of energy support, trying to create less support, less dependence on fossil fuels. So what we did was we initiated the first solar farms to drive street lights, because we felt that street lights are very critical in lightening the major cities to improve on nightlife and night economy. which our people, of course, are used to. And you know, this cannot be consummated when the places are dark. So we started the first solar farms in Ilorin. We pioneered it, and we saw that it was okay. And we feel that if this is carried on by subsequent administrations, it will not only give us opportunity of, you know, relying less on fossil fuel-driven energy, but also enhancing green energy to support the needs of energy for our people. We also ensure that one of the most critical areas of governance is revenue access. When you don't have access to revenue, no matter what plans you have, it becomes difficult for you to achieve them. So what we did was we reviewed our revenue collecting systems. Hitherto, we had an institution that was collecting revenues, was not meeting with the expectations because there were so many hitches here and there. So what we did was we changed the system for revenue collection, and that automatically translated into over 300% increase. The headroom created there gave us, you know, the latitude to carry on a lot more capital projects. Those projects I earlier told you about that were executed were largely done by internally driven revenues, because we created what we call an infrastructure fund Quara, which was a one-stop shop for funding of capital projects. It's a program we created backed by law that ensure that monies generated from the internal revenue are put into, you know, an account that is of course invested in treasury bills, so that it doesn't just sit idle, and you know, contracts awarded are paid from that accordingly. So it gives a steady supply of funds to infrastructure development, which saw a lot of our programs being carried on under this infrastructure fund Quara. It became necessary because we felt that accessing the bond or the money market for additional funds, of course, would have served the purpose, but would have also emboldened the state in terms of capacity to repay. Having seen the levels to which we are getting difficulty in accessing funds, it wasn't wise for us to begin to incur additional debts. So we brought in ingenuity in understanding how to internally raise funds, creating a funding window to support infrastructure. So that gave us the latitude to do most of the projects that we did in terms of human capital development, in terms of infrastructure. And of course, we did a lot of things on the economy, especially as affected the youths. We set up a funding agency, which we put some seed money in, that allowed youths with prospective programs to drive entrepreneurship to apply for funds at almost single-digit interest rates, which allow them to drive their various businesses. And these funds were managed through microfinance banks. So the twofold concept here is that, one, it gave youths opportunity to access funds, which hitherto would have been difficult to get from the regular financial institutions. And the microfinance banks, who hitherto had been almost comatose because lack of funds to really carry on banking businesses. So our creating the SME funds, which is the small and medium enterprise funding window, allowed microfinance banks to be actively involved in not only saying that funds are disbursed through them, but also ensuring that funds are recouped, because it also gives everybody the understanding that there are no free funds. Funds are meant to be utilized and paid back. And once you're able to demonstrate that, you have access to more funds. So that's part of what we did in human capital development. And we created youth development programs, i.e. we started what we call QUABES, which is Quara Bridge Empowerment Scheme. It was a small bridge designed for our unemployed youths to be engaged in various public work programs that will see them getting busy. And as vacancies were opening at different layers, both at the local government, state government, private sector, federal government, they are, gradually being migrated to clear areas of employment. And for those of them that wanted to take entrepreneurship, the window created by the Small and Medium Enterprise Scheme were also available. So all in all, we're able to see to creating an economic environment, improving an agriculture, of course, driving infrastructure too. For the agriculture, which I need to mention also, we set up what we call demand-driven agric development scheme. That is, we made sure that there was a huge demand for off-taking for specific crops we are going to encourage farmers to grow. So that will see the whole value chain translating into an economic activity. And I'm happy that it was quite embraced, because lots of effort were put into rice, maize, cassava, and soya. This saw huge development in poultry feed development, fish feed, and also poultry business growing and animal husbandry. We are really happy all in all to see that these things were quite impactful.
Do you have any challenge during your 8 years in office?
Certainly, there will be challenges. And my challenges were all dovetailed into funding. Because you have a lot of programs. You see, I'm a systems person. I like planning. I like articulating what I need to achieve results with, to be clearly outlined from inception, which I did. I set up a funding window to support a medium-term sector strategy arrangement, which looked at all the needs in infrastructure that would take Kwara State to its maximum level. And we tried to see how we could follow it to the letter. But unfortunately, we got challenged. Got challenged reason because our funding was largely dependent on the federally allocated funds, until when we were able to change the revenue base to improve our internal generated revenue. So the dwindling of the federation allocation naturally impacted negatively on our expectations. But we were able to bridge it up when we set up the new revenue driving platform. So between you and I, the major challenge we were faced with was inability to get the desired funding to support the expected delivery services we wanted to do.
Is there any other, maybe you are a banker, any other way you think state can, any other thing state can do to generate fund for themselves to drive the states?
Yes, there are ways. The first leg is improving on your revenue generating systems, because I know most states have not improved on their revenue generating systems. And if they looked at what they are currently generating, they could improve on that 300-400% folds. I did it practically, and it happened. I moved my revenue from monthly collection of about 500 million to about 2 billion per month. So that saw that these things were possible. Don't forget, we did not increase taxes. All we did was ensuring collection efficiency. So with that, if we had gone as far as expanding the tax web and creating new taxable environments, which is all doable areas for states, these are areas that will improve on revenue generation. Another area is if federal government allows for concurrence in some of the areas that are currently exclusive to the federal government. States will also have the latitude of playing in those areas, i.e. the solid mineral sector. Solid mineral management, unfortunately, lies in the hands of the federal government. If this is made concurrent and is allowed to be taken as part of what states can do, I assure you that there's a lot of partnership support schemes that states can evolve with to create new revenue lines and, of course, improve the economy of those states. There are other areas, waterways, there are the energy sector, so many areas that could be disarticulated to allow participation for states, which will certainly improve on their revenue generation. And I want to assume that improved revenue generation should translate into increased delivery of goods and services to the people.
Many state governors are agitating for state police. What is your position on this?
In all honesty, I'm also a proponent of the state police, because I feel that the current federal police is overburdened with the situation we have found ourselves today. If you look at it, we're almost about 200 million people, and maybe about 500,000 policemen. So it tells you that going around 200 million people with about 500,000 people will be a bit Herculean. And if we seek to create the state police, they could manage areas which are largely, guided by state laws and probably bylaws at the local government. So that takes that burden off the federal police, and they can concentrate on other major state, national offenses or needs, as it were. And I keep wondering why people find it difficult to see the workability of this, because it had happened in the past. Incidentally, I knew the Nigeria where we had a federal police and we had a native authority police. They were working concurrently and things were working well. So I see no reason why we can't create another layer of policing to aid the current police in bringing down not only the issue of crimes, but ensuring enforcement of law and order.
But one of the fears of the people is that once you give the governors the power to head, to oversee some of these things, they will overuse it, or they will use it for themselves.
Unfortunately, you see, we keep looking at workability of institutions based on individuals. We're talking of institutions, for God's sake. Governors are individuals. They'll come and go. When institutions are created and strengthened, they will not only be not available for individuals to use the way they want, but also withstand the test of time. It has always been muted. Even the First Republic, it was muted that premiers were using native authority policemen, but it didn't stop them from doing their responsibilities. So between you and I, the issue of thinking that state police will be used by state governors to carry out their personal interests will largely be dependent on how the laws setting up the police force is created at the state level, and most importantly, what responsibilities is given to them, and how orders and laws are expected to be enforced. If this is well clearly spelled out, and these institutions are strengthened, I don't see why state police should not work in Nigeria to support the current federal police.
Herdsmen, bandit, Boko Haram has become a household name in Nigeria. If you had to advise federal government, what would you tell them?
Yeah, firstly, you see, this thing has been historically mismanaged. From the times of probably at independence, was not properly managed, because we're supposed to have seen a transition of cattle rearing, as it were, from one location to the other, to ranching systems that should allow for us to take animal husbandry to its full capacity, where our youths can see opportunities and engage in, job creativity in those areas. Unfortunately, we had allowed this to linger to this level, where the population has grown beyond what we had at independence. Today, we're about 200 million people within the same land space. So naturally, you'd expect tension to be there if this land space is not properly managed in ways and manner that gives everybody equal opportunity to, take advantage of. So as it is where we are right now, if I advise the federal government, I think there is a clear need for a round table discussion amongst all the stakeholders. The herders, the farmers, the clergies, the traditional institutions, and of course the government representatives, where we all sit down and agree that firstly, this is a business. And for it to really thrive as a business that will be beneficial, we must look at what we need to do to take it to that level. There's the need for land, there's the need for water, there's the need for other infrastructure, like schools, like veterinary services, and of course roads. These are all things that must be looked at from a holistic perspective and agreed upon in ways and manner that it gives everybody, all Nigerians, the opportunity to be able to key into that line of business, beyond just seen as the exclusive activities of a certain ethnic group in Nigeria, i.e. the Fulani cattle herders. You see, the Fulani cattle herders should have been made to migrate. But unfortunately, like I said again, no government has really looked at their plight in terms of how to get them migrated from the old ways of herding cattle to new ways where they can benefit and become, like other Nigerians living in other areas. So now that the thing has degenerated to this level, it requires that we all sit down, go back to the drawing board, agree on how we should move this animal husbandry business into a proper business where everybody can benefit. It's a whole value chain, and the potentials there are immeasurable, provided we agree that this is a business and we can all benefit as such. But if we allow it to be carried on the way it is carried on and not making it look as if change can happen, and those who are currently herding cattle are made to see it as if they cannot change from what they are doing, we'll continue to have problems. Everywhere in the world, everybody had one time or the other herded cattle. If you go to Europe, if you go to Asia, if you go to Latin America, they've all herded cattle. But they've all sought to look at the benefits that comes with settling down, creating ranches, creating opportunities, and seeing how this changes the lives of people in terms of how much business can be created. The opportunity is huge. Incidentally, you see, I was one of the pioneers that brought the white farmers from Zimbabwe, Shunga farms. And incidentally, dairy was part of the areas we developed in that area. And that gave me an insight into how dairy business can really be grown to major business. At a level, we couldn't meet the need of WAMCO's demand for fresh milk. We were doing only about 12,000 liters a day, and their need was like 100,000 liters a day. So see the huge gap that exists. If we look at this gap and see how to strongly support it through creating more and more of these farms. Do you know how many people will get engaged? Do you know how many farms we can create? Do you know how many milking parlors we can create? These are all opportunities that we can all look at and change the way and manner we used to do business. But it requires us to sit down and talk about it. If we assume that this thing will get itself sorted out by the current way and manner we're handling it, it will be a bit challenging. And I think that it's high time we sat and looked at it critically from a business perspective and making the environment enabling for this business to thrive, not only for a specific ethnic nationality, but for Nigerians to see how we can make wealth out of animal husbandry business.
So many youths, thank God that you are a governor in your youthful age. They want to be in political power. What's your advice for these youths?
I would so much encourage them. I was in a program yesterday where I spoke to the youths and I told them that they cannot afford to just sit and watch decisions that affect their lives being taken without them participating. Youths must recognize that for them to truly feel the impact of governance, they have to be participants in the selection process. But firstly, they must recognize that contesting contesting and getting voted for at any level is about service delivery. And when you want to deliver service, it presupposes that you have garnered some levels of experience that you're bringing to bear. So for those of them that have had opportunities of starting very early with good experiences in various fields and they've demonstrated successes, we've seen it. We've seen managing directors of banks at age 34 and who have done so well. Some of the banks are probably some of the most profitable banks we have in Nigeria today. If these people could do it, a lot more youths can do more. So those who have demonstrated capacities should be seen as those who will be willing to bring their experiences to bear to support the much needed space of leadership selection. Because between you and I, one of the critical challenges we are faced with is the leadership selection process. And as long as we have not allowed those who have capacity, those who have demonstrated antecedents of success to carry on the business of governance, will continually be faced with this half measure of service delivery. And these are consequences that come with poor selection process. I've said it in different fora that we must take cognizance of selection process. Youths must take special interest. If you see the youths today, you see a lot of comments on social media, and I'm very happy with that because it shows that they are willing to participate. But social media is not enough. You need to create a platform where you all talk to yourselves beyond just social media and virtual talks. You must begin to see how our youth must be seen to recognize the strength of their voters' card. This translates into change. Change from where to where. Change from a process that will give us, change from a process where we don't have things to a process that will give us good roads, good water, give us good schools, give us opportunities for employment, and also give us opportunities to develop skills, to reduce out-of-school children. These are some of the things we should begin to look at. If these are the problems that we have as a country, who are those that will be able to do it for us? Why do we think they'll be able to do it? What antecedents have they done that will convince us they can do it? Because if people don't have antecedents and they come to tell you that they can do it on the strength of the fact that simply because they have said so and you accept it, then there's a problem. Antecedents of what can be done must be reviewed from clear areas of success stories. And that will begin to tell you who can do it or who cannot do it. Who has capacity, who does not have capacity. It's not about ethnicity. It's not about religion. Because when it comes to distribution of goods and services, it hasn't these colorations. So why do we choose to select leaders based on where they are from? In fact, that very concept itself has compromised the expected results. Because you have already lowered the bar for those who are coming in. If they are made to come in on the basis of religion, on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of geographical location, on the basis of gender, you have automatically lowered the bar in terms of getting the best that will deliver goods and services. Our youth must recognize this. Incidentally, they form 65% of the population. But of what are they putting this population into? What use are they putting it into? If they are not involved in a selection process that will ensure that these services are made available, and will ensure that the wrong people don't get selected, that will ensure that those who are selected are people who have antecedents that can show that they can deliver goods and services. These are things that should bother our youth today. And I'm happy that they've demonstrated that they can do it. We've seen Burna Boy and Wizkid. They've gotten, to high levels of fame. And these are just two out of a plethora of youth that have potentials. So why can't we do the same in governance? Why can't we do the same in infrastructure development? Why can't we do the same in sports? These are all doable things. It latently tells you that we need opportunities that will tap into our latent potentials, that will see that our youth are also part and parcel of our growth process. Not that you should do away with the older generation, but you create a mix. You create a mix that will see that goods and services are delivered optimally based on resources that are available, and everybody will be happy. You see, this whole insecurity challenge that you are seeing, there are consequences of poor management and poor selection process. So when we get the management and poor selection process out of the way, you see that all these issues of insecurity would automatically disappear. So unfortunately, when we are faced with this, we keep wanting to treat the insecurity problems on the face of what we are seeing. Whereas the main cause is there and has not been touched. Until we review these things in ways that sinks deeper to the causative factors, then we begin to make the long-term change that is expected to change our society. Nigerians' potential is huge. It is immeasurable, but it has to be tapped. And the only way it can be tapped is giving us the right human capital development program. Our youth education system today is not market reflective. How do we change this? How do we move in such a way that our youths are not only employable, but also employers of labor? We need to look at how current educational system fits into market needs. These are things I thought our youth should be bothered about. Every year, universities churn out graduates. How many of them would actually be able to get engaged? And we must change our paradigm from looking at getting employment to creating employment. So these are some of the things that require, and these things, this knowledge base can always be incorporated into the development scheme. So from inception, a child that goes to school will recognize the fact that I'm going to school not just learning what, but also learning how. The how is what will put you through and ensuring that you become a potential employer of labor and also a potential creator of jobs.
Some Nigerians in the diaspora might not wish to come back looking at what is happening, the insecurity, the way of doing business, the ease of doing business. What do you have for them, sir?
I want to tell them that, yes, things look a bit rough and tough now, but the opportunities for change positively is huge. And it can only be made to happen if we collectively agree that we're on this journey together, want to go far, not just fast. Desire to make these changes is not one person's job. It's a collective responsibility. Because aside from government playing its own role, attitudinal change on the part of Nigerians is also desired to fit into this enabling environment that government would create, to ensure that it gives us the latitude of maximizing the benefits that come with not only a good selection process, but the opportunities that it comes with. And for those of them that are in diaspora, we expect some of them to see these opportunities and seize them. Because when you're in diaspora, the implication is that you are exposed to developed environments. You've seen best practices. You've seen how things are done rightly. You will also be required to be part of this evolving, changing Nigerian system. And the only way it can happen is when you come home and let's see how to do things together. Don't lose hope. Don't forget that America had always had a situation where it had, entered into recession. But interestingly, each time it comes out twice as strong as it was before. So the potentials are there. We can do it. You can hear drums of separation, drums of this, drums of that. People want to secede, people want to... All these things are signs of discomfort in an economy and in the system. And these things can always be made differently if we agree that the contents of our character should shape our association, should shape how we tap resources, should also shape how we optimize resources. Nigeria will certainly be a better place.
Okay, finally, before you give us your parting word, are you still a party man?
Of course I'm a party man. I'm a party man. Why?
Which party do you belong to?
I belong to PDP for now.
Okay, do you have any intention of contesting maybe in the nearest future?
The environment is still very fluid. We don't know what is going to happen in future. But you see, for some of us, we still feel we have enough steam to deliver goods and services to Nigeria. So if the opportunity comes, I'll certainly be available to deliver goods and services.
What's your last word, parting words?
I want to urge us as Nigerians to believe in Nigeria, to not be pushed to levels where we feel that we want to disintegrate. I feel that Nigeria has a huge potential, and those who are seeking for disintegration know, even though we know that they've largely been pushed to the wall, but what is putting us together as a people is much stronger than what is trying to separate us. Let us see the potentials that comes with our diversities. Let's see the potentials that comes with the youth population we have. Let's see the potentials that come with our geographical situation, where we have the north, the north central, and then we have the south. These are all huge potentials that we can tap into. And also, if you look at the diversities of our people, it is what we should take to the next level that should change Nigeria for the better. Nigeria is a wonderful environment, and I think we can do it if we agree to do it. God will help us all.
Thank you for staying with us. We were able to talk to the former governor of Kwara State, Alhaji Abdulfatah Ahmed, who was a banker turned politician. Till we meet another day. My name is Alhaji Abdulfatah Ahmed.